Hey, legal rebels, this is Tom Martin. I'm the founder of LawDroid, and this is my podcast, LawDroid Manifesto, where I interview legal innovators about how they do what they do.
In this episode, I interview Peterson and Richard DiBona, co-founders of Describe.ai, a free case law search engine that is throwing open the doors for regular people to access justice and understand the law. Welcome to the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. My name is Tom Martin. I'm your host, and I have two wonderful guests today. We're focusing this time on legal AI startups, and the startup today is Describe.ai, and have Cara Peterson and Richard DiBona joining me today. Cara, if you don't mind introducing yourself, telling us a little about you and your background, and then Richard could follow.
Thank you so much. And Tom, we're so pleased to be on your podcast here. We're big fans. So my name is Cara Peterson. I am the co-founder of Describe.ai, and I am on the marketing and business development side of the team.
And I'm Richard DiBona, and I'm on the tech side. So I wrote the platform and did all of that. And I come from a more traditional software engineering background and worked at e-commerce companies and helped scale large amounts of data. So it was perfect for the 23 million legal summaries that we have, which we'll get into soon.
And fun fact, you two are married, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So we've been married for 20 something. I'm not sure. Yeah, for a good long time. So we are unusual founders in many different ways. The fact that we're married is one of them.
I like to say that Cara's the luckiest marketer in the world because she has 24/7 IT support.
It's a dream come true.
That's for sure. I think that's wonderful, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later. The first thing I just wanted to jump into is Describe AI. Let's say, Cara, if you can give me the elevator pitch about what Describe AI is and what it does.
Sure. Most simply, what Describe AI is a legal research tool that is using AI to democratize access to the law. And in this case, particularly case law, which, as everyone out there knows, are judicial opinions and are a foundational part of the law in this country.
Who would you say is your ideal customer? Is it solo, small firms, large firms, medium firms? Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And it's something we're actually still exploring and figuring out because what people may not know about us is we're not even quite a year old, but we've managed to make accessible all of the case law in the United States that we could get our hands on, and we could dig into that a little bit more later. And so we're exploring who we think our ideal customer is. When we say customer, it's kind of funny because we're actually a free service. So we have users, perhaps not customers in some ways, but we will have customers soon. What we're finding is that all different kinds of people who need access to legal information are using the tool. It isn't quite as a direct-to-consumer tool as some other justice technology tools are, because you can have access to the case law, you can read something, you can try to understand something, get a little more information, but it's not doing anything like giving you actionable steps that you can take or anything like that. So we really see where our sweet spot is turning out to be is really working with legal professionals for the most part in helping them be more efficient in their work. And we're particularly interested in groups like people in legal aid, people doing pro bono work, that type of thing. But we're also exploring some direct-to-consumer work. For example, we're exploring some potential ideas where we would get into prisons and work with people that are incarcerated and things like that. So we do think there is a consumer market, but it would certainly need to be handled in the right way so that people are still getting access to what they need.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm for anything that improves access to justice because it's something that people have been denied for so long. So it sounds like right now, I mean, the tool is available to the public at large, right?
Yep.
So like both lawyers and consumers, members of the public alike can get access to the tool and do their own legal research. Is that right?
That is right. And Rich can explain a little bit how it works, but it's almost like a version of it's a search engine, really. So you don't need to sign up. You don't need to provide your information. You don't have to pay, obviously. And so it allows a very open and easy way for people to search. But Rich, maybe you could explain a little bit more about the core product.
Yeah, I mean, one group that we've found and that have told us gets a lot of use out of it is like personal injury lawyers, because they take a lot of work on contingency. And so they may have, or just a lawyer who does types of work where they take in people, they may not know the exact case law to go to. And so, but up front, it's their time on the line. So they could type in something like, someone slipped outside of a store on ice, who's liable or something, and it'll give a bunch of case law around that. But it'll also give case law around like slipping on loose gravel or slipping on uneven pavement. Like the AI knows to do similarities, and I think that's the good part, is you could get to what you want quicker because you don't have to know exact keywords.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And one thing I would point out to the audience is that it's a huge endeavor what you've done, like what you've accomplished in terms of summarizing case law across the country is a huge achievement. And I believe I read it took about 18 months, right? From beginning to end for that.
If I had, I'm glad I didn't know how long it would take before I started, because I started with just a couple, like one case, then 5 cases, then 10 cases, then all of Massachusetts, then all of, then a couple states. And then at that point it was, we found a source of all of the case law in the country, Court Listener, and we entered a commercial agreement with them, the Free Law Project. And so I was like, why don't I just suck in everything and summarize it? But one of the hard parts was just getting like every summary, like summarizing a little chunk of text for making it searchable takes like 12, it took like 12 seconds at first. And so when we were starting the project, I was calculating that it would take like maybe 12 years. And then so I'm like, I have to do this. So I came up with all these ways of like parallel summarizing and everything else. And then fortunately the price came down a bit and the speed got faster over the course of the year. But yeah, that's right, 16 to 18 months. And then we update it. I just updated it again today, and there's been like there were like 4,000 cases in the last month that we just added. So including a lot of these new Supreme Court cases. So we're pretty up to date. But it's more like these summaries end up being, I like to say, just to put in perspective, and everybody out there should just type in something and try it because that's the best way to see it. But it makes kind of like cliff notes of judicial opinions so that you could go and see just a quick summary, and very quickly it takes out all the legalese. It just tells you on this day, this person did this, and it just summarizes it right down so that you could see exactly whether the case is relevant or not.
And for the audience, like, what's the advantage of that? The advantage, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but when you have summaries of every single case, it makes it much faster to get to the right answer, and also to get to the cases that you would want to learn more about. So instead of having to wait for it to look across the entire expanse of US case law, it can find it very quickly. And then the fact that it's already summarized makes it a lot quicker to get the answer. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, our search results are in less than a second, you see them all. And then you can narrow down by state if you want. Maybe a lot of people might start just searching across everything and then narrowing down by state and changing the search terms up a bit. It's kind of like an iterative process, but it's actually a lot of fun to use because you could go down rabbit holes. Like I test doing this is a very quick aside, but whenever I put out new fixes, I'll test for things and I'll just type in random terms. And a couple weeks ago, I just typed in the term food fight because it just came to my mind. And there's actually a case out there about whether a food tray is considered a deadly weapon. So I was like, okay, there's a lot of crazy cases out there.
Yeah, and he was having fun with because we should say as a caveat, our state law goes back to 1980 and 50 states plus DC. We will hopefully go back more, but we had to kind of draw a line somewhere. But the Supreme Court goes all the way back to the beginning, which it does seem like the first opinion is a bit arguable what date that is. But yeah, so Rich was having fun learning about like strange maritime law with taxation of the British.
And who owns the molasses on
Who
a
owns the
ship coming from
molasses?
Britain and all that.
Yeah,
Some of the
yeah.
earliest Supreme Court cases.
Yeah, so you can really fall down rabbit holes. But and one of the things that we've heard from one of our advisors, Daza Greenwood, who is from the MIT Media Lab and civics.com, and he was our first advisor, one of the first people we connected with. He talked about it on his podcast way back when about this concept of AI being able to find the shape of the law, which I think is a really interesting concept where, if you think about traditional Boolean search, you would put in very specific things or you'd have to know what exactly you're looking at. But with AI, you can, like Rich was saying before, these related concepts. So sometimes what will happen is you find things that you wouldn't have thought of, right? But they do relate, and then you can start to use them. And we do have a user in Texas, and if he's watching, remember to send us that video. But he's going to be doing a review for us about how he used it for some work he was doing with, I think, was it a spoliation? I can't remember.
A summary judgment or
summary
something.
judgment. Yeah. So people are finding that it's able to connect dots in a way that maybe would be hard.
Yeah, I
to
mean, I
replicate.
could complete that for you. Like,
thank you.
So it seems like we're not lawyers, but it seems like what we've heard and seen is that lawyers, if there's a topic that comes up, they'll use the same 20 or 30 cases and they'll cite the same cases over and over. And we've heard that people have found new cases to cite that they wouldn't previously have thought of. It's, because there's ones that they just weren't aware of. And so it's kind of exciting for that. And then we even heard from a judge that they were using it and verifying, like typing in some of the cases to see if, not the cases, the case facts, to see if there was other stuff out there that maybe they should consider. So it's been used by a lot of different people for a lot of different things.
I think that some lawyers, they don't understand the difference between, the good old fashioned keyword search or even doing some natural language keyword searching and the AI version of it. And what you point out really touches on it because it's about the semantic meaning. It actually understands almost in the way that we do similar concepts and can see those concepts laying together. It's kind of like, a squirrel goes out and buries a bunch of chestnuts and they're all located in the same area. But the lawyers, as you pointed out, have been kind of just getting the same chestnuts and forgetting about the rest. And so this allows us to kind of see everything, uncover everything, and be able to, incorporate it and use it to our advantage.
Ours would find chipmunks burying acorns too.
Oh, because
Acorns.
it's related.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, because it's related.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. We can go more in the product, but I do want to learn more, actually going back to how did you come up with this idea? Like what, both of you, as you pointed out, you're not attorneys. Kara, you focus on marketing. Richard, you're the technical developer guy. So how did this, come up for the two of you?
Well, I'll give a shout out to my favorite law school, which is Suffolk University Law School, where I was the director of marketing for years. So I think something must have soaked into my brain about legal technology while I was working there. But no, that's not really the reason. So the real reason is because we had our own reason to want to understand some law and how it applied to a situation that we were facing. We can't talk about it because it's still ongoing litigation, but what we can tell you is it related to ageism. So we had some interesting things that we needed to learn. And as we started to try to do so, we realized how hard it actually was.
It sounds like sometimes people have a difficulty finding the answers that they need because they're not even sure what to ask about. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you have the expensive legal search engines, which not everybody has access to, obviously. And even if you do, you may not know what to type in. And then you have Google, and Google could send you down these wild things. It's like looking at WebMD if you're sick or something, and you just could kind of go crazy. And so um, it really was a solution to our own issue in that once um, the chat GPT and everything came out a couple of years after we had our issue that was still ongoing, I took the brief that we filed with the court and summarized it, and just to see what it could do, just was because I was experimenting around, and it ended up working really well. And then that's when I took and started summarizing other relevant case law to it that I had found just to play around. And that's where it expanded, like we talked about, to the bunch of cases and then the whole state and everything.
That's a wonderful story because it really speaks to the empowerment for regular people that technology could provide.
Exactly right, Tom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you think about the impact, like obviously an employment situation is, it isn't pleasant, but there's people who are dealing with much more difficult situations in their lives, and they may not have access at all to the help that they need. Like we know that for if you are in a criminal situation, you have the right to an attorney, but that's not the case in a civil situation. So, and some of these consequences can be incredibly dire for people in terms of their mental health, in terms of their family, in terms of their finances, in terms of just all kinds of different things. And to the thought of having to face that, without the support you need is it's just unjust, I guess.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I thank you, for making a difference to give that access to people that need it. So let's step back into the product a little bit to understand it. There's legal research that you could perform where you're doing a semantic search for similar types of cases and concepts. And so is it purely like a case law search engine, or is there additional functions that it performs beyond that, or are there other features that it provides?
Rich, that's all you.
Yeah, right now it's the case law search engine. And then, but since and that's getting great traction. I mean, there's hundreds of searches a day and a lot of people using it. And it's, as you mentioned, I mean, it's getting people have been hearing about it and using it and trusting it. And we have other things in the works for that we might do as a paid tier, but still at an accessible rate. We're never going to gouge people. We're never going to sit there and try to charge as much as we can. It's more like we'd like to do something to cover our expenses, and then, you know, just from there. But we're not trying to build a unicorn here or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, yeah, we have a pretty interesting approach because, there's this concept that I think is false, or a false sort of dichotomy out there, that you're either a nonprofit, right? And you're way on that end, or you're going to be, just building to be acquired. And one of the unnamed big companies, just comes along and sucks you up, right? And just either puts you out of business or incorporates you into their products, right? But there's a lot of space between those two things. And I think that's where companies like ours, and, we consider ourselves a justice technology company, I think there is a green field out there right now for us. And we can still have very healthy, very successful, very financially rewarding products that's also solve problems for people.
So let me ask you about that. Your company is associated with the Justice Technology Association, right?
Yes, yes.
And Maya Markovich, she's fantastic, and I love what she's doing as kind of the head, the leader of the JTA. I'm curious though, like to the extent you could talk about it, like what is the purpose of the JTA? Your involvement in it. How does that work, and how does it help?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I am a huge Maya fan. There are many, many Maya fans out here in the justice tech world. So hi, Maya, if you're watching. So we were lucky enough to come across the Justice Technology Association very early on. I don't remember exactly when it was after we launched, but pretty quickly after we launched. And again, we haven't even been launched for a year. It's almost a year. And so very quickly I came across that organization, and they have members, right? So you can, if you are a justice technology solution, like we are, you can apply for membership. If you're accepted, then you have access to all kinds of great things, including Maya herself, right? Which was wonderful. But it's networking, it's, them posting about us, them sharing our information, all kinds of different support systems. So it's a really, really great organization. And Maya is, she's such a great advocate for justice technology, and with her experience that she has, because she is betting that our day is coming, right? And that we're a small subset of legal tech, which is already a small subset of, technology in general. But I think she's right. And there's some really interesting companies in there. So if people are interested in this space, I highly recommend checking out the site. We just launched a new site. If there's anyone out there who is interested in this space where you could learn about companies or support our work, there are different ways to get involved. We have mission-aligned organizations that we bring into the fold. So please check it out. And if you are a burgeoning entrepreneur yourself out there, check us out, because we will help you.
Well, you heard it here. If you are listening to this because you are also looking to launch a justice technology company, definitely look into the JTA. Good stuff and great people. Earlier, we had talked about trust. And so naturally, in any discussion about legal technology, we have to address privacy, security, and ethics. And so I'd like to ask you, how does your system work to ensure privacy and security?
Sure, I'll answer that at a philosophical or sort of system level, like a higher level, and then Rich can talk about the actual technology. But one of our core tenets as a company is we're only going to collect as much information as we absolutely have to make things work. So like we were saying earlier, we don't want your email, we don't want your name, we're not going to store what you're searching for. So we're making it as minimally invasive as possible for people. So that's part of the trust too. But we also know that one of my canned jokes is that everybody's brother's dog walker's cousin's best friend has a legal AI startup right now. So we also know that there's just a lot of us out there, and it's hard to know who you can trust. So we are committed to building the tool in an ethical way. And some of the advisors we brought on early on are helping us with that to make sure that we are aligned with best practices. But in addition, a lot of the work we do with people like you, Tom, and other legal tech, highly regarded influencers, if that's a word in legal tech, making sure that we are talking to people about what we're doing. And we've always been very open about what we're building. Whereas I know a lot of technology companies have to keep things very close to the vest, which is understandable, but we try to be as honest as we can.
I would say related is like the accuracy pieces of it. And that's a lot of what we've seen in legal tech is like the whole accuracy of the outputs and everything. And so we were kind of lucky that we never built this on ChatGPT or a chat engine or anything. And all we did is asked the AI engine, OpenAI, to take long blocks of text, longish, and make them shorter. And so it's not working on, and we're not saying give your opinion about this or do anything about it. We're just saying summarize this. And so it doesn't take any other thing into consideration except what we give it. So our summaries are actually they seem to be quite accurate. I mean, I don't want to pin myself down to anything, but I could tell you that we haven't had anybody tell us that what is this? The summary is completely inaccurate. And we've also had people spot checking a lot of them. I personally spot checked probably over 1,000 of them, and it's been very accurate in that regard. So there is a trust factor there that it's good, but we do provide the original opinion too. So when you search, you could click the name of a case and you could see this Cliff Notes version that we've created using AI. And then if you scroll down, you could see the original if you wanted to read the original and compare it. So so we do provide that along with like the original docket number and everything else.
And one of the things we're really interested in is, since the Stanford study that, everybody obviously, Tom knows very well, and people out there know probably what we're talking about. But basically it was, if you don't know, for some reason, it was some researchers at Stanford, not at the law school, but they were testing some of the big, AI players. And there's a lot of questions about the validity of the study and all that. I won't even try to go into that, but it does raise a point that there is a need for some sort of independent or some way of looking at these tools like Describe and having some sort of way to benchmark them, to test them, to provide some level of insight into how well they're working. And so we, as a company, are very interested in pursuing this and being part of any of those kinds of studies. Unlike some other groups, we're very open. It's like we'll just let people in, right, to test things. So we're really, really hoping that we can put that together. We're starting to talk to some folks about it, but of course, with this type of thing, we can't do it about ourselves. So it has to be an independent effort. So hopefully that would help with trust too.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's a problem that needs to be solved. That the Stanford study, as well as my friend Richard Tromans at Artificial Lawyer did a bit of coverage about this, kind of blowing that open. And but it's a valid point, and I think even the head of Thomson Reuters agreed that there has to be some kind of independent, benchmarking, which
that was a good interview. I read that.
Yeah, so it's just about everyone agreeing on how that's going to be done, or somebody independently comes up with those criteria soon, I hope.
It will be the legal librarians. The legal librarians are the not as recognized as they should be force in legal technology. They're going to be the ones who figure this all out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is what they do day in, day out. I mean, this is their bread and butter. And yeah, I've been a fan of legal librarians for quite some time and worked with them a bit through LawDroid. But all right, so one other question I have about the company is, and I think you alluded to this already, have you secured funding from venture capital? Are you looking to do that? Are you looking to just grow organically? How's that going to work?
Yeah, so we are 100% bootstrapped right now. And so this is one of the fun things I would say about being an older entrepreneur. And I don't know how many fun things there are about being an older entrepreneur, but this is one of them. You're maybe a little more established in your career or whatever. And so you maybe have a little money set aside or something, but you can kind of build the thing the way you want to. So we've been lucky that we haven't had to chase funding. That said, we're not independently wealthy, and we have 2 high schoolers who have to go to college soon. So we got to make sure we still have money coming in. So that is a question we're actively discussing.
We also knew
right now.
We also knew, Cara, that the majority of the costs would be up front, like the summarizing costs. And now that that's done, like our OpenAI bill was unwieldy. Like we got promoted all the way up to like one of their tier 5 providers without even wanting to be. And then, but now it's like, because we're just doing the updated cases and it's very affordable, our OpenAI bill. But so now we're just basically paying for hosting and everything else. But it would be nice to have money for engineering and marketing and all the other things that a company needs to really grow.
Yeah, and we're looking for, so it's funny because we have a lot of VCs calling us and a lot of accelerators calling us and things like that. But one of the funny things about us is we're looking for that impact investor type person, right? Because we are people, because we are not the type of group that would say we're going to do everything to maximize returns and just, screw what it does to the universe. And I'm not saying that's what VCs do, but it's a certain kind of investor that would be interested in us, and they're out there. They're social impact investors, so we're starting to play around in that space. But we're pretty adamant that this is going to make money, but it's not going to just create another billionaire. That's not what we want to do with a time left on this earth.
Well, I know a little bit about what it's like to be more mature and having a startup, and with a high schooler and college age daughters. Yeah, it is kind of nice to be bootstrapped. It is kind of nice to be the owner of your own company and not necessarily have to be on someone else's schedule, and calling your own shots is underrated.
Yes.
So along those lines, that you can set your own course right now. What is the course? Where do you see this going? Like right now, you have a fundamentally great product in terms of case law research. Spend a lot of time putting that together. You have been out for only a year, but that's a pretty major achievement in that time. So you had mentioned that you're still trying to find the product market fit. Do you have an idea where that might go, or are you still working on testing that?
Yeah, and Rich has a wonderful analogy that he likes to use, and so he can say it himself, but basically it's similar to what we were saying before. But you have
You'd say
these
it better
tools.
than me, Cara.
Okay, well, I'll try. I've heard you say it a lot, so let me see how I do. But you have the tools that are extraordinarily expensive per attorney per month, and then you have Google all the way at the other end, right? So in between, there's a lot of space. So what if I could wave my magic wand and in a year, when we're talking to you again, Tom, and tell you what we've been doing, what we would like to tell you is that on top of the case law research tool that everyone's using for free and that we are maybe expanding into other countries, perhaps that's definitely a goal, especially English speaking or places that have law in English, because that's a little bit easier for us. That we would say we've also layered on another set of tools that are helping people in their daily work in the legal sphere. And the reason I'm being a little cagey about that is because we're not quite ready to announce what it is, but we probably have a new product rolling out, or we do have a new product rolling out within the next few weeks or months, which we think will shake things up a bit and will help with some of the hallucination stuff that people are very concerned about in AI. And I'm sorry to sound so
Evasive.
Thank you. I was thinking the right word. But we think it's going to be pretty cool. So hopefully what we'll be able to say is that we have our base for free, and then we've built some tools on top of that, leveraging that data that we've mined over time, and it's creating tools for people that are very, very affordable and helping them in their work. And particularly if they're, legal aid or other types of organizations that are trying to serve many, many people, it will give them wind under their wings as well.
Tom, I sing like a canary, so if you want to have another podcast, I'll tell you everything.
Yeah, that's true. He will.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And, my audience includes solo and small firm lawyers. So if you're listening, Describe.ai has a great resource for doing case law research, and it sounds like there's more on the way. One other question I'd like to ask you is, what's the biggest obstacle that you faced in the past year that you've overcome?
That's a great question. It's funny because when I think about any obstacle, it's like the answer of how we got around it is always just this tenacity, right? It's just like, that's entrepreneurs, right? Like you just have to keep going. But I would say from a marketing perspective, this is an expensive industry. And Tom, you know that very well. One of the first things that we did is we were nominated for one of the Legal Week Awards, Legal Tech Awards down at Legal Week. And we were thrilled. And, Stephanie Wilkins is one of our favorite people. And because they were the first ones to write about us. So hats off. But, we were thrilled to go down to New York and all that. But, there weren't special rates for access to justice groups or anything like that. Like it's just expensive, and it makes sense that it would be. I mean, big law has a lot of big money. So I would say one of the obstacles was just finding a way to even get noticed without having a lot of money. So that was the obstacle. What helped with that, besides tenacity, is that legal tech is the most awesome ecosystem in the world. And I can say that without hesitation. I've been in other industries in the past, but there's something special about legal technology. People are incredibly generous with their knowledge, with their time, with helping each other. It's just an amazing network. So I feel very lucky that we chose legal as the space to go into.
Did I tell a quick add-on to that? Do we have time?
Of course.
When we first got into this, we were using the Harvard case law project data. And they had scanned like 40,000 volumes of books, which probably most people on the call already know about, all their law books, which helped kind of free the law, as they like to say. And it turns out that one of the guys who was working on that, Adam, lives near us. And so he reached out to Carr, or Carr reached out to him or something. And he's like, why don't we meet for coffee? And we went to meet for coffee. He's like, oh, you guys should think about this, 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 and this. And I'm sitting there the whole time coming from all these other industries where everybody's just close to the vest. And I'm like, what's the catch? Like, why are you helping us? And I'm like, do you want, are we going to get a bill for this? He's like, no, I just like to help people. And that's what we found. Everybody likes to help people, and everybody's willing to answer any questions. Everybody's so nice. It's great. It's a great industry.
And my thesis, attorneys, like there's a lot of mental health issues in practicing attorneys. There's a lot of burnout. It's a tough industry, and people get into being a lawyer because they want to help people, right? And then you end up in this sort of situation where it's a really tough environment, the billable hour, all of these things that make being a practicing lawyer very, very stressful. So, one of my hopes for AI and Describe or others, it doesn't even matter, is that it also helps people who are in this business have a more meaningful and sort of, I don't know, healthy work life. So.
Well, it's always great to meet, other legal tech founders that are in it for those reasons. There's a lot to learn from each other, and there's a lot that we can do together, especially because I think sometimes things get too disconnected because naturally we have life going on and takes us in different directions. But when we come together, that's a real special thing. It's one of the reasons, I love putting the American Legal Technology Awards together with Patrick Palace and Cat Moon, because we literally get to come together that night and celebrate together. So that'll be fun. But I would like to ask you, if there are people that are watching this thinking, this sounds really interesting. I'd love to get into this and put something together, especially given the fact that the technology is widely available. You only have to have access to an API to really start something. What would be your advice to them?
So it's funny. I say so it's funny every time. Apologies. You can edit that out. One of the first people that we spoke to early on, I won't say who he is just because he didn't give us permission to share this, but he was someone who's doing sort of case law work in a more old-fashioned way. But he was interested in getting involved with AI. And when he used Describe, he said, oh my gosh, I'm just going to not forget it. I shouldn't bother because yours is so amazing. And I said, absolutely not. Don't think that. There's room for you. There's room for us. There's room for a lot of innovation. So don't, just because you see one thing that works well doesn't mean you shouldn't try your own flavor of it. So don't be intimidated. I mean, if you would have told me a year ago that I would be running an AI company, I would have probably asked you did you eat something bad for lunch or something, because it's just happening that fast. So, trust yourself. And I like to say there really shouldn't be any imposter syndrome in AI, because none of us really know. We're figuring it out as we go, and that's okay. That's the moment we're in. And connect, find people. There's a lot of, go on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, believe it or not, LinkedIn is where everybody is for this stuff.
And from my perspective, I was going to say that giving it away for free has actually been super rewarding, beyond like just to see it out there and see the usage and see people that we don't even like. Cara has talked to so many people, but we see people that we've never even talked to talking about it or reviewing it or doing videos about it. And that's so rewarding, and it's better than like if we had done some paid thing and we had like 50 or 100 customers right now. It would just be such a slog, and I'd be sitting there doing tech support and Carl would be trying to do sales. We wouldn't get half the opportunities that we're getting now, and we wouldn't have helped as many people. So it's really so worth it.
And how about for the lawyers that are watching? How would you encourage them to embrace AI and the law? Like, what advice would you give for them?
Keep an open mind, and it's interesting because you see some people, starting to experiment, including some judges, right, that are actually starting to experiment with using this. AI's here. It's not going away. It's going to change pretty much everything we do. And the law is a very special place. It can't just be blindly thrown out there, because it'll cause more problems than it solves. So learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid, and don't shut yourself off to it, because the people who are going to do well in this space are the people who are open to learning about it, and not just like this. So it's intimidating for everyone. Everyone's intimidated by this. We don't know all the answers yet, but it's a journey. It's a journey we can all go on together to learn. And of course, listen to all of Tom's podcasts. That's what I recommend.
Thanks, Cara. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
Well, we do love feedback. So if you're out there and you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, or the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen, tell us. We especially like to know how people are using it, if it's useful, if it's not, and what kinds of things you'd want. We're very responsive to that. So a lot of the things that we're building now that will be coming out over the summer and fall are from user feedback and things that they said that they would like. So please do talk to us. You can always find us on LinkedIn, email us, whatever is easiest for you. We really like to talk to actual users. So please don't hesitate.
And spread the word if you do like it.
Exactly.
And so for the audience to learn more about your product and to keep in touch with you, how would they do that?
Great. So we are Descrybe with a Y.ai. So just come to the site. It's super straightforward and easy. And at the bottom, you can either sign up for our email if you'd like, or you can find us on LinkedIn, or just go ahead and send us an email at info@describe.com, the emails.com.
And you get a search box just like Google, where you could just start searching. There's no sign up, no friction. We got rid of all friction. I would say there's no friction anymore.
We are frictionless.
We are frictionless.
Well, it's good to be frictionless. And thank you so much, Cara. Thank you so much, Richard, for being on the show.
Thank you so much,
Tom.
Tom. It's an honor to be on this show.
It is an honor. And thank you for all you're doing for our legal tech and justice tech community. Hats off.
Well, thank you. Happy to do it. And thank all of you for watching the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. See you next time.
Thank you so much for watching the latest episode of the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. To keep in the loop about upcoming episodes, please subscribe to LawDroid Manifesto and you'll get notified. Thanks for watching. See you next time.